I mean, how do you even begin this video? Like, right? How do you even begin? No amount of scripting or like thinking or anything would prepare me for the moment I hit record. I guess let's just begin by going to the basics. For this episode review, I'm just screen recording myself, and then I'm just kind of having the images up and going to the relevant ones. So that'll be what we're doing here. And while I do so, I'm going to talk a little bit about the background of overdress. So usually I feel like, and I worry that I'm cynical, right? Overdress was announced, and when that original stream that announced the overdress era happened, I felt very cynical, and I hated that. I was so disappointed in the new direction the anime was going. It was now a seasonal. I didn't like how the character designs looked. But everyone else was so happy. They were like, hey, look, this is the anime we've all been waiting for. It's so good. And so I just kind of sat there being like, yeah, but I don't really like it though. And so I was kind of dreading today. In a way, I was like, I'm not looking forward to hating another Vanguard anime. And I really didn't like the reboot era of the Vanguard anime. I didn't think any of those seasons were particularly good, even the Shinemon season, and that's the one everyone liked, or at least most people liked. And so I just wasn't ready to hate the Vanguard anime for like a fourth year in a row. And so I booted up this episode, and I got ready to be disappointed again. And it kind of blew me away. What the fuck? This episode was so good! I'm not joking. This isn't like a fake bait and switch or anything. I'm being legitimately 100% serious when I say this is the best episode of Cardfight Vanguard we have had in years. This episode was kind of incredible. And the biggest surprise was that I wasn't expecting it to be. I went in with zero expectations. I went in expecting it to be fine. But what I got was something genuinely, actually good, I guess is the best way of saying it. Like, I don't know what to say. I guess we're going to move to a different image now because that one's getting a bit old. I don't know what to say, honestly, and that's kind of a problem because that's the point of this video. This episode was incredible. And it's incredible because it's doing like artsy stuff. Can I say that? It's doing like weird artsy like stuff. And I guess let's start from the beginning. Let's start here. Now, I'm not going to necessarily give like a play-by-play of how the plot to this episode goes or anything. You can go and watch it yourself. Hopefully you have, because if you haven't, you've missed your chance until it actually airs. But yeah, no. This episode was really good because it builds up to a moment. And anyone who's seen the episode, which is hopefully you, knows what that moment is. And everything so beautifully, like, it builds up to it. And it's so good because we got Yuyu, who is this protagonist, who is a pushover. He finds it difficult to say no to things. He always just follows along with what his sister wants. And that ends up leading him to cross-dressing. And I was really excited and worried about this element. This was the element that stood out. My previous complaints about the overdress anime is that nothing stood out. Everything now stands out. It's like a 180. Once you see everything in context, it comes together so beautifully. And up until that point, I was blind and didn't see it. So let's talk about it. So yeah, Yuyu is forced to cross-dress against his will, and I was worried they wouldn't be, like, sensitive about this issue, because, you know, when you get into this kind of stuff, you gotta treat it with some respect. But honestly, whilst they make a lot of jokes about the cross-dressing and anything, I didn't find any of them, like, below the belt, you know? Like, they were all, like, genuinely funny and respectful. They weren't mocking Yuyu or anyone for their, like, lifestyle or personality. They don't make any bad jokes about any of that kind of thing. They don't mock transgender people. They don't do any of this or that. They make jokes that are funny, but they still like aren't offensive, and that's great. I'm very happy about that. Obviously, as who I am, I can't really speak for any kind of minority or anything. And for anyone who's already annoyed that I'm getting into this kind of topic, that's kind of what the anime is about. I'm not saying Yuyu's trans or anything, but I am saying that Team Blackout, if I can go over and yeah, this image works. Team Blackout, to me, seem like a group of outcasts. They've all had their own various different struggles in the past and have kind of run away to escape from it all to play a card game. And that is it's so good. It's so refreshing. Because I kind of saw it as sort of an allegory for LGBT people. Like, for example, you've got the leader of the group, Danji, and he's already so, like, smitten with Yuyu. He's constantly blushing at him and everything, and yes, he does think Yuyu's a girl for the majority of the runtime of this episode. But what's really, really good is that even when he finds out, he just keeps blushing. It's like the Mulan moment, you know? It's which I guess makes him bi, which is great. The fact that they kind of confirmed that without, like, making it into a joke or anything is great. I really like that. And it's a cool way of doing that kind of thing and making it feel natural. I'm not saying, like, really blunt and on-the-nose stuff is always bad, but the fact that they integrate it in a way as if it's no big deal. Same thing with Yuyu. They don't, like, Yuyu doesn't seem overly top offended about the fact that he has to cross-dress. It's just kind of a mild inconvenience to him. And I think that's great. And what makes this so good is that you have this group of outcasts who are coming together to engage in a hobby they like. And that's such a great way of framing this as a Cardfight Vanguard anime, right? Like, the fact that the hobby is bringing people together in this way is so interesting and so engaging. And when you get to that amusement park and you see everyone having fun, it just feels great. They're all like role-playing and like in on the bit. You know, like they have these overly dramatic like wrestler type introductions where Seto calls Tohya like the shadowy outsider who has a mysterious past, and they're all like kind of playing along with it, and it's so great. And that's kind of what it's been leading up to, because the beginning of this episode, if we go kind of to some of the earlier screenshots, it seems a bit mundane, right? Like, you kind of just got Yuyu, he's interacting with the rest of the cast of the characters. We're introducing each character one by one. You've got this weird pervert dude who's like chasing after Yuyu, trying to sing karaoke with him. Yeah. And it seems very kind of mundane, and I thought it was very oddly paced for the beginning of a new series like this. But that's exactly the point, because the whole point of this episode is that you're seeing it from Yuyu's point of view. And the beginning few scenes from Yuyu's point of view are pretty mundane. You'll even see with like the color palette and everything. Everything gets a bit warmer and more vibrant, and I know you're saying, but that's because of the sunset. But that's exactly it. That's how they frame it. Even during the nighttime scenes, like here, it's still very warm and bright. And then this bit happens, and we'll get to that bit in a second, don't worry. Because, and yes, I have to mention, yes, they're using card sleeves, that's really cool. Like, I do genuinely love the fact that they're using the card sleeves and everything. I think it's so cool to like actually see the card game represented in a more realistic and down-to-earth manner. But I do also think that, like, people complimenting the card sleeves thing has, like, become such a common occurrence. It's kind of becoming like a meme. Like, take a shot every time someone compliments the fact that this anime uses card sleeves, right? Speaking of, I really do want Danji's card sleeves. He has, like, these black card sleeves with, like, the Blackout logo on them. I want those. They'll probably sell us at some point, right? So, congrats, card game advert. You sold me a product. But yeah, like that stuff's all really cool. Everything seems mundane, and it's building up until the Danji card fight, where everything suddenly out of nowhere becomes less mundane. And that's kind of what the entire episode is building towards. It's building towards that moment where Yuyu suddenly kind of falls in love with Cardfight Vanguard. It's basically the same first episode Vanguard always has. Vanguard always starts with a fairly mundane daily life of a protagonist, and then they see or engage in a card fight, and then everything changes. It's basically the same first episode we've always gotten, but I would argue this is probably the best execution of that, and I think that's great. And so the characters are really likable. I really like Megami so far, and I really love Danji so far. Those two characters especially, I really, really like. Seeing their interactions was really cool. But man, it's all about that card fight. That was the thing I was the most worried about, was the card fights, and I still am a little bit, but I'm a lot more willing to trust them after how good the card fight in this episode was. Because we got a card fight. We got an entire card fight, and I thought it couldn't be done. I thought we could not introduce all these characters and have a full card fight all in the same episode, but so many clever decisions tied together to make it work. It works because they have Tohya Cardfight Danji instead of Yuyu. And so we don't have to have the tutorial yet. In fact, I'm pretty sure we're getting the tutorial in the next episode. Oh, cool. That takes a little bit of time off of the card fight, so we're more likely to fit it in. But also, it's, like, the way they do it, like, yes, they do skip parts of the card fight. That was, like, my big, major sticking point, I guess. It was, like, the card fights were too short and brief. For a first episode here, it works. But also, even cleverer was the idea, as I mentioned earlier, this episode is framed from Yuyu's point of view. And from Yuyu's point of view, he doesn't get it. He doesn't understand the card game. And so, of course, he's not going to be following the minor details. He's just going to be remembering the big important moments. The moment where they stand up, and let's talk about it. Let's talk about the bit. The bit that... Okay, I'm convinced that Bushiroad's entire plan this entire time was to have a certain moment from this episode go viral and have people see this scene go viral online, go, that's a cool scene, and then run into the overdress start decks and go, wow, cool scene, but also the deck the guy was using in that scene is only 300 yen, huh? And that's their marketing strategy. Let's talk about this moment. Yeah, let's do it. Okay, this moment is incredible. Not just for the moment itself, but because of the stage and the build-up. So the stage that the characters have been fighting on is like this fairly plain-looking table with like a shadowy background, and it looks fairly plain and boring. What's really cool about it is how it visualizes the imagination element of Vanguard. In Vanguard, the anime at least, the big crux of it has always been that the characters are imagining the card fights as they go, and they visualize this in the previous seasons of the anime by just having it cut to shots of Planet Cray where the units are fighting each other, and that's cool. It works. It gets the job done. What's even cooler is there's a reason this stage has such an empty black looking background, because you can phase things in and out of the background and have things appear, and it's so cool. So this card fight is great because it emulates how a card fight feels. And so it's not showing what's actually happening, it's showing what the characters are feeling like it's happening. Like I said, it's kind of like that role-playing element that the characters are getting into. They're sort of playing a role as they're fighting against each other. And that's so, so cool. It's, oh my god, I can't gush enough about this episode. Because you'll see there's a moment where Danji attacks Tohya, and Tohya like starts bleeding, and then in the next shot the blood is all entirely gone. And that's not a continuity error, because again, it's showing how the characters are feeling. They feel like they're fighting each other, so they actually feel the hits. It's not really happening, they're just imagining it, which is the crux of the franchise. And then there's this moment where the fight table disappears, and Tohya and Danji starts walking forward, and we cut to Planet Cray. Up until this point, we hadn't seen the units. We'd just seen the characters slapping cards down on the table. But this moment where Danji walks forward, it transitions to Planet Cray, and we get this really cool, like 2-minute long sakuga action scene of these two units fighting each other, and it is the coolest thing ever. My words can't do it justice, you just have to watch it. I would show it, but I'm not getting DMCA'd by bushiroad today, so I ain't risking it. So these images do not do it justice, but you just gotta trust me. It's really good. It's like really good. It's so good. And if we're gonna get more stuff like this each episode, obviously I'm not expecting this scene in every single episode, but if this is how it's being framed, then I don't care that we're only getting 12 episodes and then a hiatus and then another 13 episodes. Quality over quantity, am I right? And another thing too, is it's not even just that moment, but even the moments before that, when they are just card fighting. Because yes, you have the card sleeves and everything, but also the way the two characters are playing feels a lot more real. Like, they're not just exaggeratedly going, my turn, I draw, I ride my Vanguard, you know? They're not doing the anime thing. They're actually just placing the cards down on the table and go, okay, my effect activates, and I do this. And it feels a lot more chill and down to earth, which is probably what you don't want for tension and stakes, but actually, ironically, it makes it feel more tense and makes it feel like there's more at stake, because it feels like you're actually watching people play a card game. It's really that simple. You just gotta do it in a way that's fun to watch. It's so good. It's like, what? Like, again, I'm having trouble talking because I'm like, I don't even know how to do it justice. It just works. Everything about this. And what makes it so good too is that it's refreshing. It feels like, and I know for a fact this is exactly what happened, new people came in and took a look at it from a new point of view. It wasn't just the same old staff being chained down by tradition. It was new faces coming up with new ideas. Now that they're not chained down by the past like this, they can do what they want. And it's so good. It's so refreshing. It's so interesting. Obviously, I do have my hopes for future episodes. I do hope that from now on, the card fights are a little bit longer and easier to follow. But even then, this one wasn't difficult to follow. Also, another good point, danji was playing the deck correctly. Which I know feels like such a small little thing, but the fact that danji was actually using the strategy you're supposed to use when you play the deck was so good. How many times have you seen a card game anime where the character just ignores the strategy involved with the deck and either draws the right card at the right time and wins, or sacks a trigger and wins? Every time, right? Like, every single card fight in the reboot era was just decided by a trigger sack rather than a character employing strategy. This time, he won because he knew how to use his deck. He knew not to guard or crowd his field until he got his grade 3 out. It's so good. It's so refreshing to see strategy back in my card game anime. I cannot tell you enough. And being able to follow it, it's so good. And again, this was a short little introductory card fight just to get us hooked. This wasn't even one of the ones that Yuyu was supposed to follow along with. So once we do get the tutorial, the card fights are hopefully gonna get even better. This is the happiest I've been in a long time. I'm not even joking. It feels so refreshing. And even the other things, right? Like the character designs and stuff, they've grown on me. I like them a lot more now that I've seen them in context. Now that I know why they're designed in the way that they are. And I've seen a lot more of the characters. And even just like the small things, like Zakuro here. I was expecting him to be the villain, so just seeing him like just from the way he's designed and everything, whenever I saw images of him and the bald guy, I just assumed that they were the villains for the series. So just seeing him chilling here with the other characters and having fun. He does this little thing where like he shakes the soda before throwing it to danji, and then danji opens it and it sprays in his face. And it's like, it tells you a lot about him as a character. Maybe he will end up being a villain at some point, I don't know. But just seeing him around with the other characters was really weird to me. And I mean, I'm not even going to really get too deep into it here because this will waste a lot of time. Maybe a future video, but there's a bit in the opening theme where like you get a very quick flash of these images here, and I mean, take what you want from them, because there's a lot to dissect here. I'm not even going to go into them now. Also, the opening theme, it's by Roselia. One of the massive complaints I had during the V-Series era was it felt like they were not picking songs that fit the anime for the opening and endings, but instead just promoting whatever bushiroad license seemed to be hot at the time. And one of those things was them reusing Roselia. And it didn't fit for the V-Series in my opinion. The opening fits this way better, and it's Roselia again. But it just fits the tone they're going for so much better than it did in the V-Series. And that's the thing, a lot of this isn't even them changing or making things better, it's just making it more tonally coherent. You know, like, that's all it really is. And if this is what the new era of Cardfight Vanguard is, if this is, like, what we're getting, obviously I have my hopes and reservations for the future. I'm very interested to see how they manage to balance the story, the characters, and the card fights in a first, like, half of a season that's 12 episodes long. It's going to be a very difficult tightrope walk, but honestly, this first episode did it pretty well. And I think the entire episode was important, which was great, you know? Like, I saw some people argue that the beginning scenes of the episode weren't all too important, but I actually think they were potentially more important than the later moments because of the fact that they're doing so much groundwork establishing. And the fact that all the characters seem like they have so much going on with them that you can read into and make theories. And again, that opening theme has so much theory bait. It just... It feels like a good show. And I know that sounds so smug of me to say, like, oh, it's just a good show. But honestly, that's all it is. It's just a good show. Like, I should probably wrap things up here because I don't have anything else to say really. It was just good. I cannot believe I went into this with such small expectations and came out of it going, oh my god, they won me over. This was incredible. It was really good. And that's all it is, you know? Like, obviously we're gonna get into some pretty heavy story-focused stuff in later episodes. I'm sure we will. But honestly, even for this first episode, just seeing characters having fun, playing a card game to escape from their real life troubles, and getting into that kind of role-playing and imagination spirit, it was just so wholesome and fun. And I'm looking forward to when they inevitably tear my heart in half. Again, judging from those opening theme visuals. But yeah, that's basically all I've got for now. I'm just really excited to see where things go next. It was such a great first episode, and it worked. You know, that's the only thing I can really say, is they just made a good episode of a show. And that's all it is, you know? Like, you don't need to overthink it and stick to all these weird traditions and things that they've been doing in the past for seemingly no reason. No, you just gotta make a good episode of a show, and the rest will follow. And that's indeed what's happened. So I'll see you later with some more videos. Be sure to subscribe. I am planning on reviewing every episode of the overdress anime. So if you're interested in that, let me know and subscribe. And I will see you later with some more videos. Remember, for every statement, there's always an asterisk, and I genuinely cannot believe that this episode was as good as it was. Usually, I feel like people are like being hyperbolic when they say stuff like that, but I genuinely thought this episode was really, really fun. And yeah, I'll see you later with some more videos. See ya.